Actually, our wrist and forearm, when we're cramped, must also push forward firmly. Your center of gravity must also stay low. Hello everyone, I'm An Kexiang. Welcome back to TT Love channel. Today we have invited a special guest, my good friend, Miao Lei, to help me complete this episode. Hello everyone, I'm Miao Lei. Today I'm honored to be with Coach An to discuss table tennis techniques with everyone. I'm very happy to learn and coach together with everyone. When we are performing a backhand flick, first, we must anticipate the position of the ball in advance. If the ball is short or half long, we can flick it, but we need to judge the distance of the ball in advance and the spin as it comes over, specifically which direction the spin is going. Then the second step is to work with the spin. For example, as a left-handed player, the opponent's left-handed serve comes with this spin path. First, we need to anticipate the spin's location. Second, we need to reserve the right timing for contact. The contact point. Of course, the best contact point is at the top of the bounce or just as it drops slightly. At that time, we follow its spin to perform a flicking motion. First, during the backswing, the distance from you to the ball must be sufficient. Second, depending on whether it's side spin top or side spin back, we decide at contact whether to add some brushing or just go forward. Or for a side spin top ball, we need to go forward and down. With the racket head, we need to time the contact point. So during the backswing, relax a bit, stabilize your elbow to avoid excessive movement. Second, when we contact the ball, we must have a squeezing action with the fingers to flick the ball. Because many people, when flicking, their hand is actually loose when contacting the ball, or during the backswing and contact. They constantly grip the racket with a lot of force. You must relax first. Relax, then have a squeezing action. Second, our center of gravity, including our body, must be as close to the ball as possible. Keep the ball within our spatial range. For this shot, from a left-handed perspective, after you finish, the return to backhand. The right foot. Does the right foot need to plant? Generally, what kind of position should it plant? Or with what kind of force should it plant for the ball? We need to transfer the ball's force into that planting position. We need to transfer the ball's force into that planting position. Or with what kind of force should it plant for the ball? For left-handed players, actually it's similar for right-handed. After we finish the flick, our center of gravity will naturally be on our dominant hand and foot. After the flick, we definitely need a push-off, but for the supporting foot, the auxiliary foot, we must plant that position well. Of course, regarding that position, my suggestion is to try to be a bit further forward. You could also plant wider to ensure that after flicking, the first transition and the second transition, our center of gravity won't wobble. So, for this shot, what you mean by planting wider is, you need enough space to generate power. Yes, enough space, enough room, while also ensuring our center of gravity doesn't wobble. Because some players tend to, after the first flick, for the second ball, habitually step back, or habitually take too big a step. Of course, it's best to be on the same side, with a slightly wider stance. If you do that, including your core, it must be very tight. Yes, after we flick, the core can lean slightly toward the supporting foot to better push off, because after you flick the ball, the opponent uses your power to rip it back. At the same time, not only must the core help, our right leg, the supporting leg, including our core, including our left shoulder, must all be stable, providing support. This ensures our center of gravity doesn't wobble. At the same time, we must keep our hand high, because the ball after the flick may be brushed back or blocked back. This ball may become very unstable after using your own spin. We need to ensure our hand doesn't wobble along with the ball. That means you need to ensure that when your core and your feet are exerting force simultaneously, you can attack continuously, right? You need to have the awareness of continuous attack. Yes, and continuity. Because after you flick, depending on the opponent's level, their handling of your spin will be different. Lower level players tend to just block. Higher level players, based on your spin after the flick, may add their own brushing and power. So depending on how the ball comes, it can be short, long, with stronger spin, or no spin, just pushing at you. So for our return, the second ball transition, our stance must adapt to the incoming ball's changes, including the height of our hand, must also adapt to the incoming ball's changes to position ourselves. Also, it's common to encounter a ball that is lighter and slower. In that case, we must not let the speed of the ball cause our center of gravity to rise and fall. First, we need to be stable, and our hand, based on the ball's changes, should not rush. Then the body parts simultaneously combine that force. The ball just now was one where the opponent lightly borrowed power, lightly defended. So for that ball, as you can see, my distance was a bit too far, meaning I stepped back too much after the flick. So the correct way is that after the flick, if the ball is short, I should step forward to cover that position, keeping my body in the middle at the best contact point in front of my body to cover that position, and then combine forces to contact the ball. Everyone can see the position of this ball is the best contact point, and its rhythm, based on the rhythm of the incoming ball. This ball is neither fast nor slow, and the spin is not too heavy, so I can actively generate power. If the spin is too heavy or the arc is too long, then I can stick, meaning my motion doesn't need to be too big. Borrow power. If the opponent's ball comes very light, I need to raise my hand higher to actively generate power. As we can all see, first, Dr. Huang's flick and the transition after flicking actually have many detailed issues. The first is his stance. On the first flick, it never reaches the best contact stance. Often he steps in and suddenly finds the ball jamming him. Then his body leans back, and then stepping back for the transition ball. His stance is sometimes too close, then gets cramped, and his wrist starts to wobble. And while wobbling, the arc is also very high. The arc of his forearm is also very high.
那我的
The correct approach is: first, our anticipation must be accurate in advance. Then after the flick, we step back, not retreating halfway through the flick with our entire body. The transition shot's hand will also be unstable. Instead, it must be fixed and stable. Anticipate accurately. We explained the second ball transition after receive, transition after your shot. Now let's share. Same thing, second ball transition, but after the first ball is a drop shot, backhand loop against backspin. Coach Lee, many players, after serving and dropping short, think they dropped it really well, thinking they have a good chance to attack on the second ball. But at this moment they easily get cramped. Often there is no space to pull back, or no time to generate power. The question is how to adjust footwork. For our backhand after flicking, first ball loop against backspin. During the transition process, first, our footwork must be stable. Finish the first motion, then take a step back. At the same time, we cannot do it in one step. This is a common problem for many. Because if you do it in one step, the ball can change. Spin, length, and height can all differ. After the first ball flick, you must first recover, then take an extra step to adjust your position. At the same time, during this transition, an important point is, after pushing, your center of gravity must stay low. After the push, after keeping the center low, if you get cramped, then your supporting foot must make a second adjustment on the second step of your movement to adjust. And the distance of that adjustment is, as we said, on the second step, we adjust. And the distance of that adjustment largely depends on each player's years of habit. Some are used to stepping back, some are used to taking a very big step, but I suggest here to be slightly wider than shoulder width. Same as after our flick. The way we handle the second ball, we need to ensure our center of gravity supports us in performing a looping motion. Everyone can see, on that ball just now, I was a bit cramped. So when we are cramped, my supporting foot can make a small step back to create room, rather than retreating a lot in one step. At the same time, my center of gravity stays stable, leaning forward. The center of gravity must not move back and forth. Also, even if you are cramped, when you take that one step back, you still have to go forward. Not after being cramped. Your forearm performs a very high brushing motion, or your wrist wobbles. Even if we are cramped, our wrist and forearm must push forward firmly. Our center of gravity must also stay low with the legs. A small step back is fine. After looping, you must plant that position. Not after looping, your whole legs have no support. As we can all see, classmate pays loop just now. On the surface, there is no major problem, but we can look at some details. For example, after his push, he took about 2 to 3 steps. Those small adjustment steps are fine. However, with those small steps are fine, but his center of gravity rises and falls a bit too much. Legs not stable. The better way is, after pushing the ball, we can step down to concentrate the center of gravity more on our waist and thighs. Because our backhand loop against backspin mainly relies on our waist and both thighs to plant, to generate power for the loop, also during his backswing. His backward and forward motion, the complete action is a bit even in speed, lacking a relaxation acceleration, a process of accelerating and brushing the ball, so the ball he loops is quite flat and slow, but the consistency is okay. However, if you want to improve further, of course, I suggest relaxing, then having an explosive concentration of power. At the same time, we can see his left leg is too wide compared to his stance. Also, his toes point out to the side. It would be better to bring the left foot in a bit, with toes pointing forward, so that the force is not concentrated on both sides, but more in the middle, to concentrate the force in the middle. At the same time, the hand may be at a certain distance from the body, a bit far. It may be close to the ball, but far from the body. I suggest finding a good space, so we can position ourselves to better generate power. The gap, the elbow must be held out to perform the motion. We see that classmate Y tends to loop out more often, because after his forehand push, the arc of his stroke, his forearm draws a fairly large arc, rather than a direct forward motion towards the ball. Instead, as soon as he contacts the ball, his forearm starts going up, adding too much safety margin, and also adds too much brushing, because nowadays the ball is not like before, where the ball had very heavy spin. Now the ball, actually, most of the time, the spin is not that heavy. We can keep our backswing space, and at the moment of contact, just go forward directly, that's enough. Immediately different. Go forward. Light force and technique. Then it's about the contact point. The position of the contact point and the height of our hand. Because after a backhand loop or backhand flick, the opponent usually blocks or brushes. Most often blocks, so the incoming ball can be a bit floaty, and without much spin. We need to take action ourselves, to squeeze the racket, to add forward force, rather than thinking about grazing, or lifting the arc, or deforming the motion. During the backhand loop and transition to the second ball, the center of gravity must not rise and fall. Second, after the loop, our shoulders must relax, hand held high, elbow braced, both legs planted, always staying in a neutral position. When contacting the ball. After the loop, remember to raise your hand afterward. There must be a clear contrast between backspin and topspin, because this ball, compared to a backhand counter hit ball, might be even less spinny. So we should not add too much brushing, but rather hit. The forward motion needs to be more. If the ball often goes out for us, then I suggest, after finishing the motion, our racket head can go further forward and down, even push down a bit, because many of you may tend to brush too much on the backhand. Today we invited a heavy-hitting guest, Miao Lei, Coach Miao, focusing on the backhand half-table flick and transition after flick, including backspin loop and transition after loop, using very professional, very detailed explanations. I hope everyone, after watching this video, if you have any doubts or any questions, you can leave them in the comments or in the message area, and we will reply to everyone in a timely manner. Thank you all. I hope you continue to follow us. Give a like or share.